You know, it boils down to an absolute unwavering love for my country. I have children, and I've always raised them to believe that with hard work and dedication that you can truly become anything that you want to be in this country. And unfortunately, as a result of many failed government policies that come down at the federal level, um, I've seen firsthand what those out of touch policies have done to the small business owner and have done to the average American who's just trying to do the right thing to contribute to society. And at this point in my life, I'm not interested in a career politician representing me. And my passions behind these initiatives are what drive me every day when I get up. I love my country. And we're in a position right now in our country where career politicians are now making the decisions for my day to day life. And I don't necessarily believe that these are the people who would have any idea what it's like to be a small business owner. Um, I don't believe that they could relate to what it's like to make a payroll every 2 weeks. What happens when clients don't make payment or perhaps they file bankruptcy, and what does that look like when you don't collect a salary so that you can make sure that your employees are taken care of. Regulations are something that they're not used to dealing with. And I've seen enough through my experiences with healthcare, and I've seen enough through my experiences with being a business owner where federal level policy is stifling job creation and stifling employers. And my intention is to represent those interests, and that's why I've decided to run. Unity is, without question, the most important thing to getting anything done. Doesn't matter if it's in business or if it's in real world situations. You have got to be able to work with people from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different viewpoints, to be able to accomplish anything. There's never going to be any rule of law that should be my way is the only way, and you will do what I say when you're legislating or when you're working to drive a policy down to the people. We've really reached a time in our government, and I've seen this firsthand with my own intimate experiences with our healthcare system. And as shocking as this sounds, and I'm sure I'm not going to get a standing ovation for this, or it may not be popular, but you can't argue with the facts. And I've met with the highest levels of government to have these discussions. We're at a day and time when the insurance that I was forced by the government to purchase was a lesser plan accepted at far fewer healthcare providers than the Medicaid insurance that covers all of my healthcare. Really understand what I'm saying here. I'm telling you factual data, and this is indisputable truth. The entitlement programs and the federal level Medicaid program is admittedly a better system than the insurance that people had to purchase by means of fines, force, and penalty. Where have we reached as a country when it's actually more beneficial for me to stifle my business's growth and not increase my productivity for fear of being made to purchase insurance that can't be used anywhere and that it's going to bankrupt my family? That in fact a Medicaid program works better. Medicaid wasn't designed for that. It's not designed for those purposes. Those are programs that are designed to take care of the truly most vulnerable. And I've seen just through healthcare alone, these systems are unbelievably broken, and I believe it was by intentional design to force people into a single payer system. My stance on immigration is taken from a couple of different perspectives. And of course, the way that I do things is it's difficult to have conversation unless you've actually been involved with something. So I'm going to answer it a couple different ways. As when I was an employer in the corporate world, I was responsible for creating the integration strategies when we had migrants coming over to work at the distribution centers I managed. And the assimilation process to a culture and to a business place are those are non-negotiable factors. For things to be copacetic and to work appropriately, we have to have individuals who have a strong desire to understand what work ethic is, understand what company policy is, and then be willing to assimilate to those things. So from a business standpoint, I saw what amazing assimilation looked like and how a business can be enhanced and increased with unbelievable talent from all walks of life, all cultures, and it was a beautiful thing. And I also saw what that looked like when there was a failure to assimilate. And that is a disruption to productivity, disruption to the workplace, and it's not for a good relationship all the way around. I mean, it's obvious as to why that is. So in theory, I think people come up with certain positions, but then in practice, you really have to talk to people who have actually been involved with these programs to understand. Now, the second piece that supports why I am so strong on very specific immigration proceedings is based on the fact that we forget an important piece of this. And the failure to have appropriate immigration policy in place that is followed by a legal process, you are now opening up people who desperately want to come to this country and contribute to the success of this country. You've now opened them up to potentially being exploited, whether that's by companies who say, listen, they're undocumented, I don't have to pay them even the minimum wage. They can come work for us and we can do whatever it is we want to do to get the work out of them that we need. They're at our mercy. And then secondary to that, you have to think about the situation with regard to human trafficking and just general exploitation. You start getting yourself in a position when you don't have strong policies in place to protect these initiatives. You're just opening yourself up to way too much, and you're not protecting the person who wants to come here and be a part of our great nation. Trade is incredibly important to me in policy, and this started for me really as a young kid. My dad worked for those large aviation firms back in the 80s and 90s. That was really the manufacturing automobile industry as well as aviation. It was a huge industry growing up, and many of the parents that we were raised around worked for these organizations, and everybody remembers the bust and when things started being outsourced and sent overseas. I know what life looked like when my dad came home and he had lost his job, and it was tough. And even in my older years as a human resources professional, I was the person that once the company made the decision to ship out or to outsource or nearshore or whatever words they were using to spice it up at that time, I knew what happened from the perspective of having to sit down with people and shut facilities down and outsource their jobs. So it has become all too incredibly easy for organizations to do business overseas with really no regard for what happens to the people. I mean, that's at the end of the day what happens to the people, and I've seen it from that perspective of devastation. And we need to create policy and support initiatives with trade that keep companies in the United States and make it more attractive for companies to want to be here and to support America versus going overseas. These things aren't secrets. We know that these are issues, and we've got to be able to work on these things. I describe myself as a lucky lady. My blessings are many. I grew up on the west side of Columbus, very blue-collar area, and I had the blessing of going to Columbus Public Schools, so I know that some people lived in different areas and perhaps areas with more wealth, and that's okay. But I happen to be very proud of where I came from. I'm proud that I had some time to live in the country, too, in my later years. We have a small farm, 2 pet cows, plenty of cats, dogs, chickens, 4 sons. We are a blended family, so I've had neat experiences being able to be a step-parent as well as a parent, and my boys are all great. My husband's amazing. He's incredibly supportive. I have a life that I'm proud of, and we work very hard for what we have. You gonna hit the campaign trail with Mommy?
I think I might stay home.
You might stay home. You and your brother are a little bit of a risk management issue.
Unless it's like a trip to Mount Rushmore.
Maybe a trip to Mount Rushmore. That's cool. All right, we'll count you in for that then. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are looking at me right now, maybe even my opponents, who are seeing me as an underdog. And there's nothing wrong with underestimation. I'll be glad to surprise you in the end. And I think what everyone has forgotten about is the ingenuity of our people and the dedication of volunteers. It speaks a lot when I have farmers showing up to my house at 4 o'clock in the morning to work, stay-at-home moms, business professionals before their shifts start in the morning, and people from all walks of life who desperately want the political process back. So what I may lack in fundraising efforts and huge donors, to me, that's actually a plus. My reasons for doing this are the absolute most pure intention you could have, and that's something that quite frankly can't be competed with. It just can't.